What is up, social media? It's Tyler. I am just shooting a quick video for you guys. I just drove down from Denver and I had a first today. It was my first ever commercial listing appointment. So I stopped on the way back down at that Ackerman overlook off I-25 where you can kind of get a really good view of the Front Range and the Air Force Academy. I just kind of sat there for a second and processed the appointment and did a little bit of journaling. And I thought this one was pretty good, so I figured I'd do a quick video and share my story for you today. We're gonna call this one Failing Forward. So on Monday, I was texting back and forth with somebody and I was asking them their good and great for the day. And good and great's irrelevant to this story, but it's something I learned from Preston. When he was growing up, his mom would sit him and his siblings down at the table and have them tell their good and their great. So your great is the best part of your day, and your good is your good deed for that day. And this person I was texting back and forth with, they said, they asked me a counter question. They asked me what something was that I failed at that day. And they said failures are important and they should be recognized because they teach us lessons and they help us learn and grow as well. In addition to that, failures help you expand your comfort zone, and that's basically how you kind of grow, is through failure. It's like that Meek Mill song, right? About the levels. It's how you level up through failing forward. And I told him that I had a pretty nice one yesterday. I learned a fun lesson in business. It was specifically related to a purchase I was making. I learned about some lending and tax things that I didn't know before. If I had known them, I would have saved a little bit of money that I ended up having to leave on the table if I'd been proactive about some things I didn't know about. But that's how you learn and grow, right? But I had that first commercial listing appointment today and I psyched myself up. I was driving up to Denver. I knew the guy was pretty mellow and cool. I knew he flew out here from Ohio to go see that property and meet me. And I did a CMA for him before I went up there. For those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, it's competitive market analysis of what other properties have sold for recently. So I knew what it was worth. I knew what he bought it for. And all I got to do is convince this guy to sell. And the next thing I know, I'm going to more than triple make back what I lost yesterday, or I perceived I lost yesterday from my little business learning and growing experience. So I meet this guy and find out he owns a bunch of different restaurants, bars, things like that back in Columbus where I'm from. And he's not much older than I am, which I thought was pretty cool. Obviously that's something that I perceive to be a couple levels higher than where I'm at. So I built a lot of great rapport with him. It turns out one of the bars he owns, I was actually telling him, I think when I was a student at OSU about 10 years ago, I was on that big swing that he had there and they would spin me around and the bartenders took the tequila squirt gun and shot it in my mouth, and he kind of laughed and he was like, yep, that sounds about right. So we were pretty cool. And I'm learning a little bit about this failing forward thing, and it kind of struck me that this doesn't ever stop. This guy, although he's a couple levels above where I perceive myself to be, he's still consistently failing forward. So he understands bars and restaurants in Columbus, but he kind of wanted to capitalize on the green rush. So he ended up buying this pot warehouse out here. And I come to learn that he, owes a little bit more than what he purchased it for, because he had to put some money into it for the grow stuff, kind of change around the HVACs and things like that. And he's learning some things about whether or not he's grandfathered into certain zoning regulations, whether the zoning regulations are changing, what his facility actually is, and whether he can actually sell it as kind of the marijuana warehouse or if it needs to be something different. So he needs to kind of get some more information on whether it makes more sense to lease this thing out, sell it, or find a developer to help him develop it into something different, or somebody who wants to do like a long-term lease and improve the property. So obviously this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I don't really know about this or if it's even going to be lucrative. So I could basically, kind of tell this guy I don't want nothing to do with it and go back to what I know how to do in Colorado Springs, as this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But what I do know is that this is a relationship business. I know that this guy has a relationship with an agent in Ohio. He's known him for 15 years. He knows, likes, and trusts this guy. And this agent in Ohio knows, likes, and trusts me. So he sent this guy out here to come meet with me because he knows who I am and that I'm going to help this guy if I can. So I'm going to do a little digging into this. But I also know, well, I'm in Denver on my little pot warehouse adventure. Back in Colorado Springs, our new administrative assistant, she's doing a compliance training for our brokerage compliance system, SkySlope, with an agent and a transaction coordinator. And I also know that 2 months ago, compliance systems was something that was completely outside of my comfort zone. We had fears about, what if I get audited? They could take my license away. What would I do if I lost my real estate license? That's the business I'm in. And now in just 2 months' time, I've got an administrative assistant who can actually train other people on compliance systems. So I also know, while I was in Denver, on one of my good lender buddies, who I like to send some business to, and I know, like, and trust him. He knows, likes, and trusts me. He was talking on the phone with an Army guy getting him pre-qualified. And he called me and asked me if I could help find this Army guy a house. And of course I can do that. I've done that hundreds of times. But I also know that 7 years ago, when I was brand new out here, I was a skinny kid from Ohio who had no credibility, and walking somebody through that process was a little bit intimidating to me as well. So I'm not sure what's going to happen as I kind of go down this, commercial path with this one specific property. I just know that, in a few years, if I wanted to, if I liked this, I could be some guy who was selling giant commercial buildings and being the broker for that, or helping people develop them. I could be the guy who owns bars and restaurants and my very own marijuana pot grow houses if I wanted. The only advantage that somebody, who owns all these different businesses has over somebody like me is going to be either experience or capital. Now, the capital part you can't change. Some people have a little bit of an advantage over other people. I know about 10 years ago when I was reading Trump's book about the art of the deal, he was talking about how his dad gave him $1 million to give him a little head start in business. So I can't change the fact that, when I was getting started out, I was a full-time college student who was struggling to make ends meet, packing boxes at UPS, waiting tables at P.F. Chang's, picking up dog shit for basically apartment complexes with happy lawns, hanging lights on rich people's houses with Light Before Christmas. But I do know the experience part, that's not something you can buy. You get that through failing forward and expanding that comfort zone you have. So I guess that's your story for today. It's called Failing Forward. First you learn, then you remove the L. And aside from that, I'm growing my hair out and it looks absolutely ridiculous right now and I hate it. And we are probably going to go back to lockdown on Friday, which means they're going to close Lifetime. And I really don't want to just get fat and lazy during the holidays. So I got to work through that too. But there's a million things on the to-do list. I hope you're having a great Tuesday and we'll talk to you soon.